Call to order the New Kent County Board of Supervisors, Monday, November 24th, 2025. Meeting to order. Ms. Watkins, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Evelyn?
Here.
Mr. Moyer?
Here.
Ms. Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Steers?
Here.
And Ms. Stewart?
Here.
Happy Monday. Short week. I know everybody's excited about that. So we'll get on to our agenda. Our first item this morning is the New Kent Housing Advisory Committee update. Mr. Andy Shine, Chairman of that committee. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairperson, members of the board. Happy Monday. It is a happy Monday. The Housing Advisory Committee is here today to present to you 4 actions and 4 solutions. Just get the first. As you can see on the board, there's 4 different actions. The first one is manufactured homes, be presented by committee member Matt Starr. The second, Housing Trust Fund, presented by committee member Jeremy Nicely. Third one, hiring a housing resource coordinator. And fourth one, creating housing webpage, will be presented by our vice chair of the housing committee, Bill Dismore. So let's get this rolling. If you want to ask questions during it, please do. We're here with lots of answers. So let's make it a little bit interactive. So first one up is Matt Starr.
All right, the mic is on.
Yep, good morning, Matt.
Morning. Good morning, members and staff. My name is Matthew Starr. I'm in attendance here with my 3 boys. They're mostly here to critique me later on my presentation. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you. Also like to thank my fellow housing committee members who have worked incredibly hard over this last year and a half or so. They have been thoughtful, I think, and purposeful in their efforts to reach these 4 action items, and hope that you'll take them to heart and consider them. We acknowledge that housing can be a sensitive subject and that there is a delicate balance between finding solutions for housing and the cost of those solutions. We've all witnessed the rise in cost of homes in New Kent over recent years. Of course, this is as much a national problem as it is a problem for us in New Kent. Where this really hits home for us, though, on the housing committee and as community members and just fellow friends, is that we see this as a struggle for everyday people. And when I say everyday people, to us that means teachers, police officers, firefighters, and even county staff. And last but not least, our own children as they search to find a place to call New Kent home when that time comes. So that brings me to my part of this presentation, which is manufactured homes. Well, we certainly acknowledge that this is not the only solution, but we believe it is at least part of the solution. Do you want me to bring this up? Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's perfect timing. Unfortunately, manufactured housing is plagued by its predecessor, the trailer. And you'll see to the left at the top is a great example, and that's actually one of the parks that we have here in New Kent. That is Long Acres on Mount Castle Road. The first picture on the top left is one of the parks that I inherited, so to speak, and then the picture to the bottom right is the most recent rendition of that after we came in and demolished and redid. So we've all heard about manufactured housing and how it has this stigmatized and kind of plagued perception. And we've all, I'm sure, heard a joke or two. One that I hear pretty regular, thought I would share is, how do you know someone lives in a nice mobile home community? Well, their house has more wheels than their car. I do think it's important to address the stigmatized history and note some of the significant differences in today's manufactured homes. They really do not compare at all. Manufactured homes in home communities in New Kent have largely been neglected, and many are in disrepair. I have personally undertaken or am in the process of undertaking the revitalization of 3 of those, hopefully more in the future. It's rewarding for me to turn them around and provide a clean, quality environment that meets a need in our community. Manufactured homes today are built with a strictly enforced federal building HUD code, and they utilize many of the same construction materials as conventionally stick-framed houses. Our new homes, at least the ones that I'm installing, have 2x6 exterior walls, 30-year dimensional shingles. They have high-efficiency heat pumps, and they have heat pump water heaters, as well as Energy Star appliances and LED lighting throughout. These homes have a rough sales price of $120,000 to $145,000. An estimated payment on these homes on a 25-year loan at an 8% rate, and that, of course, is subject to credit, is roughly $926.18. It's important to note, though, that included in that cost would need to be the lot rent. Lot rent is dictated, at least in my parks, by the market rate. I do a poll of all the local communities to New Kent and just basically take an average. The lot rent at my parks in New Kent is $600 per month. So a total of lot rent and mortgage payment is $1,600 per month. The median home sales price for New Kent County is currently $435,000. So you can see the stark contrast and the ways that this could provide maybe a filler for some of those folks that can't quite meet the threshold required for the $435,000. Considerations as I close. We would ask the board to encourage renovation and revitalization of existing manufactured home communities. And then secondly, to explore locations with access to sewer and water for a possible new manufactured home community with high standards, high and strictly enforced standards. We have an MHP zoning now at the county, in the county zoning. I know we're getting ready to rewrite the zoning. Just a suggestion, that MHP may be completely adequate, but I suspect there are some things that may need to be rethought to make sure that it's practical if we decide to use that MHP going forward. One of those specifically would be lot sizes. I think, Ronnie, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, the minimum lot size allowed in MHP now, I think, is 10,000 square feet, which is fairly large. That roughly comes out to about 4 homes per acre, which sounds reasonable, except that if you're going to put in all this infrastructure, let's see, the second slide. Oh, there we go. All right, so the top left is a park that I renovated on Henpeck Road. It was owned by Dot Moran. In memory of her, we named it Moran Park. And then below that, you can see the end result. And those lots are, I think those lots are very comfortably spaced. There's yard. There's also room for parking. Those lots are about 5,000 square feet, and that's probably a more accurate number of what would be desirable. And then, of course, the home on the right is one of the new homes that we've moved in. This is the inside. All the homes come with appliances. Typically, they're stainless steel. the commodes, the showers, the sinks are a lot of the same materials and suppliers that you would see in a conventionally framed stick house. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, I'll introduce our next member.
Any questions, Mrs. Starr? Ms. Pearson?
I'll wait.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Our next member is Mr. Jeremy Nicely.
Good morning. As Matthew said, my name is Jeremy Nicely. I'm glad to be on the Housing Advisory Committee. I've been really proud of the hard work and energy and effort the team has put in place. There's been numerous discussions over the last 18 months on really how to really affect New Kent County and really start to tackle some of the major challenges that I think that the county recognizes. But not only that, but the state and really nationally, which comes to the challenge when it comes to affordability, workforce housing, and then also safe housing within our community. And so we've really, tried to think through and really determine the best way that we feel like our county can tackle some of those main issues. And so we've landed on one of our second action item, which is for the county to consider a housing trust fund. And really what a housing trust fund is just a way, a program specifically designed to increase affordable housing within our community. As Matthew said, the biggest challenge that we're running into is finding places for our first responders, finding places for our teachers, finding places for people within our government. Our kids, when they want to come back to the county, is finding homes and housing where they can really afford to do so. And I think we've all recognized that some of the bigger challenges that we have is a lot of our employees even here tend to look outside of the county for housing. And we all recognize that as people leave the county to find housing, they are more apt to find jobs more closely situated to their home. And so what we really wanted to focus on was a way to keep many of our residents, attract new residents, attract teachers or first responders or things like that to the county. We felt that putting a fund together that would help facilitate that through the county would make a major impact in doing so. So really the main intent would be to use basically establish a fund through New Kent County that basically will be helped administered by the Partnership for Housing Affordability, PHA, as I'll probably reference them a few other times here. And really the intent is to really utilize those funds to help make housing more affordable in our community. But along with that, we have also recognized there is a major need to improve existing residences with safe housing. And that was a second part of our discussion was how could this fund be utilized not only just to tackle the housing affordability crisis that we're seeing, but also how can we have help people that want to age in place keep up with their homes. So part of that as well is to obviously provide incentives and opportunities for people to improve their existing residence. And really what our initial ask would be is for a $500,000 initial investment that would be annualized, that every year that we would continue to basically increase this fund with the intent that 2/3 of that dollar amount to be utilized for housing affordability and 1/3 of that to be utilized for safe housing. But that not to be limited to or restricted to those specific targets, as we recognize that maybe safe housing could be a quicker and more direct improvement as housing affordability and especially new developments and new opportunities come into existence, that may need to basically maybe become 50-50 for the first year. But that the intent would be is that for 2/3 of it to be for housing affordability, workforce housing, and the other third would be for safe housing. So we have two main requests for the board to consider. The first is to really allow our committee, our subcommittee, to continue to move forward with this project. This project I have a timeline, but this project will take significant time, energy, and effort for the committee to continue to work towards. And we want to make sure that by doing so, it would be something that the board would recognize as important and valuable to our community. And the second request that we have is that we have requested $500,000 to be in the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2027, and that be approved as the initial seed to allow for this fund to get started. A couple of key details just for kind of high level review is the initial fund, like I said, will be $500,000 for fiscal year 2027. And as I said earlier, the intent would be for that to be a continued annual investment through the county. Fund targets, for the first year or for the fund, $150,000 would go to safe housing. That would be to improve quality of life for those, whether it's building ramps, fixing plumbing, making small adjustments to insulation, whatever those items may be. And then the second, or $350,000 would be designated for affordable housing, workforce housing force. It would be administered by, or we're recommending that be administered by the Partnership for Housing Affordability, PHA. They specialize in this. They have worked with other counties within the state to put together trust funds very similar to this. So they have a lot of working experience with exactly what we're trying to accomplish. We would need to put together an application review. The safe housing, part of that would be administered by the PHA in coordination, but the new housing resource coordinator, which Mr. Dinsmore will actually speak about in Action 3. But then the affordable housing portion would be managed and oversaw through the Partnership for Housing Affordability. Financial approval, basically the fund distribution, we would recommend that the board would create a committee to work with the PHA on reviewing applications for the Housing Trust Fund for those, and coordinate with, that resource coordinator for safe housing. And then really the overall intent was that this dollar amount, this request, this fund would be a benefit to all districts within New Kent County. Not limited to or a minimum threshold for any county or any district to have access to, because we recognize that there's districts that may have more need, whether it comes to safe housing or obviously housing affordability. But really the intent would be is that all districts could participate and have access to those funds within it. Upon approval, this would be some high level, just initial steps that we need to take place. The first would really to partner with the PHA to facilitate the creation of the fund. We have already begun that process. Ms. Inman has been fantastic in this avenue and communicating with the PHA. She's been really integral to the success of early discussions on what this would look like and how we could set that up. And Henrico County has a trust fund, their Henrico County Trust Fund, that they utilize the PHA, that we would recommend obviously utilizing them as a guide, at least their template on how they set up and created their trust fund for our county. Next would be just to create the guidelines, just who would be basically rewarded those funds, how that would come into play, whether it's through annual median incomes, whether it's based on like a point system, meaning first-time buyers or first responders, or however that point system would be designated, but determined or a coordination of the two, the annual median income or that. The third would then be to put some type of really terms of agreement for the end user, and that may be through deeds of restrictions. This is what Henrico County is utilizing on their PHA as a deed restriction. We're recommending that would be the case. But there could also be obviously employment terms or things like that if it was an opportunity to provide maybe to a new teacher an opportunity that maybe there's a way to retain an employee for a few additional years in their place of work. And then we would create the application, the review and approval process, and what that would look like as we continue to go through that. The PHA would help us with that specifically, and then really the board, we would request would appoint a committee to review and approve that. And then lastly, as part of this initial setup would be we would just determine how the funds would be distributed. That could be cash at closing. That could be or through completion of the project directly to the company or the individual that's done the work. It could be things like tap fee waivers. It could be permit submittal waivers, things of that nature. We would help determine how those funds would be distributed out to those that are receiving the funds. So with that, that was the end of my presentation. So I'd love to open it up for any questions that you guys may have.
Ms. Stewart?
I just have one question. How did you come up with $500,000?
We felt this was, in speaking with the team, we felt this was a nice start, initial seed as we started to run through just kind of what that opportunity would be, what we're seeing in the county, just in speaking with, obviously, the committee itself, but then also in some talks with the PHA of just what would be a great starting point in ways to have an immediate impact.
Thank you.
Does the PHA have any cost to administrating that, a percentage or some type?
There is, and I believe Amy, I'll have her because she's been the one that's really been working with the PHA.
Morning.
Mr. Chairman, yes. The Partnership for Housing Affordability, they have a great history of working, as Mr. Nicely mentioned, with Henrico and administering their fund. And yes, there would be an administration fee associated with that, basically a staff time as well as the grant management system and managing the grants, because they will be working with us to process those grants. And then they also have legal representation as well. That I think will be necessary as we move forward, potentially moving forward with the folks who are selected for the grants, for the deeds and all of that, and working with the closing costs and whatever we might end up providing as assistance to the affordable housing.
I guess for me, I'd like to know probably how much roughly those administration fees are going to be. Out of the $500,000, how much money is actually going to go to the citizens of the county?
So we would potentially.
Yeah, I know you
Yeah.
can't answer. I know you can't answer that now, but that's just a question.
Yeah, I mean it would be a relatively small amount. I'm thinking $55,000 to $60,000. I mean, so it isn't nothing, but it has
Right.
to be administered, and certainly we want to make sure that that the funding is administered properly and fairly to citizens, in collaboration with the board and whomever you might want to appoint to a committee to review those applications.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you all very much.
Now I'm going to ask Mr. Bill Dinsmore to come up, and he'll review actions 3 and 4.
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
I was the head of the Safe Housing Subcommittee, and like Mr. Hathaway, we hate to throw away a good building. We don't want to tear it down. We'd like to rebuild it, make it safe. So the first thing we're requesting, the first action, and I'd like to thank Social Services for New Kent County for being here as well, because we had several meetings with them to determine the need and the responsibilities and the cost of hiring a full-time housing resource coordinator. And in order to do so, we would have to spend about up to $50,000 in salaries and another $17,000 at the max for benefits, of which 85% of this cost would be reimbursed back to New Kent County by the state if it's placed under New Kent County's Social Services Department. We need a full-time housing resource coordinator. We need someone who's trained, who can capture the data, and who can provide reports on actually what is needed in New Kent, what's been used, what's not been used. There's not a lot of concrete information as to the specific number of cases, and we need that information. The only way we can capture that is through a system that does that. So what we propose with the Housing Resource Coordinator is a partnership with James City County, which already has a partner, a housing resource department. And Suzanne has a relationship with James City County that would allow them to participate in training this housing resource coordinator and getting them certified, which is a 2-year process. Once certified, the housing resource coordinator would be fully trained in that area of expertise and would be introduced to a number of resources that would be available to New Kent County, which James City County has already taken partnerships with. We have some that exist today, but there's always more out there. So obviously, New Kent wants to find as much resources as we can and how best to serve the community. So with this training cooperation with James City County, we feel this would be the fastest way for that to be accomplished at the least amount of expense. They also have a software program that's used to capture the data on a daily basis. We would get the use of that software program, and we can determine its effectiveness and whether or not in the future it's something that New Kent County may want to invest in. So we would have the training and the knowledge beforehand before you ever need to make that decision. The second part of that is there's a big need for housing outreach and education. So we felt the best way that we could accomplish that would be to develop a website resource on New Kent County's website. And we have resources already at our disposal with Krista Yusey. I've had several conversations with Mr. Hathaway about that. That could be implemented next year. It doesn't really cost anything to the county to do this. We have a number of information resources. And again, the website would look similar to what you see in James City County with New Kent's unique twist to it. So those are the two actions that we're proposing for safe housing. One is have a housing resource coordinator. There are a number of resources already available to us in New Kent County to utilize for safe housing repairs, replacement of handicap ramps, replacement of heating systems and roofs. The Social Services Department already has those resources in-house. The need there is to be able to provide funding for materials. That can be done through the Housing Trust Fund. It can also be done through outreach program with churches and places like Habitat for Humanity, United Way of Peninsula, and things of that nature. And fortunately for us, we don't have to go out and create that from inception. That already exists at New Kent County Social Services Office. So that's my presentation on safe housing. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Dismore. Any questions?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Housing Advisory Committee. This is an incredible amount of work to pare this down to these 4 recommendations. I saw the list when it was 20 to 30 to 40 recommendations, and they worked through it meeting after meeting with separate committees, and they've worked incredibly hard on this presentation, and I really, really appreciate it, because the purpose of this committee was to recommend to the board what to do about housing in New Kent County. I'm looking at these figures of $1,600 a month for manufactured home. When I first bought my first home, my house payment was less than $500, I believe. It's unreal where we're at right now with housing. So we do need your recommendations. I will say that I'm not prepared to approve anything here at this board meeting. We are in the process of going into the budget in the next couple of months, and I would like Mr. Hathaway and his staff to give us their recommendations after looking at what you've presented to us. And again, I just can't thank you enough for all of your hard work on this. I know it was hours and hours of work. So.
Mr. Moore.
I'll add a little to this too. I got the ability to have the firsthand knowledge of what's going on in the Housing Advisory Committee, and it not only is a very important, very good thing for the county, but it has shown our county throughout the area is, in small counties, is a regional leader in this effect. We haven't done anything yet, but we have talked about it, and we are ready to do something about it. And nobody else in the counties around here that are similar size are that far along. And we want to make sure that we are forethinking about this, is that we're in control of what goes on. There may be legislation in the next General Assembly or the following General Assembly that we will be told what we can do in our own counties. We want to have an idea of what we want to have done in the county, and that's why it was very important to put together this advisory committee and to have the 2 ways of looking at it. One, what are we going to do for our current citizens? What can we do to help them? And also, how do we attract the right type of employee, citizen to the area with housing too? And I appreciate all the work that's been done. Mr. Shine leading everybody, and this has been a very, very good thing for the county. As Ms. Pearson has said, that we are getting ready for budget, and there will be discussions about this. That's for sure. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just want to echo what Mr. Moyer and Ms. Pearson said. I really appreciate the very thoughtful and deliberate approach to this very interesting obstacle that we have in front of us. On Plan RVA, we are talking about the same topic at our February meeting, and we're going to see what every other locality is doing. And we decided on this topic because we sat in a room, and the person from Chesterfield on my right and the person from Hanover on my left said, nobody's doing anything about affordable housing. And I was like, no, that's incorrect. So now we are having all of the member localities come and discuss what they're doing. And my hope from that is to see what the Chesterfields have done so that we know, because they're at a point now where they've created too much affordable housing and they're trying to balance that out with higher cost homes. I want to see what they have done. And I think you all have considered a lot of this in your work on the committee, but I'm a trust but verify person. So I would like to hear, what our other localities are doing as well. So that's going to be, I think, February 12th is that meeting. And when I was reviewing your presentation, I looked at it, I kind of rearranged the priorities a little bit, and I looked at it as most actionable in the immediate to most ambitious. And this is just my food for thought, so take it for what you will. I looked at this as a web page is extremely actionable. Manufactured housing is extremely actionable. Housing trust and hiring a resource coordinator take more time to figure out how we take appropriate action on that. And like you all said, in our budget process, that's a big consideration because I don't think we, as in our role, have a ton to do cost-wise with web page or manufactured housing. And on the manufactured housing point, I really, really appreciate the members of the committee doing the work. I know when I looked at who I wanted my representatives to be for District 5, I looked at people who were both thought leaders in this, but leading by example of actually doing the affordable housing work. I don't think there's a mindset that you have to be trailer park for life. I think that if we're talking about affordable housing, as someone who, hopefully when my husband's stationed back in Virginia, we can find a house to buy in New Kent County. I think that manufactured homes are really leading the way, and it doesn't have to be what it was in year before pictures. I think the after is really leading by example, so I appreciate that. And for District 5, when I was campaigning to represent District 5, I noticed a lot about the aging in place issue, and I really appreciate the committee and DSS really working in tandem to address that. I know a lot of work is already being done, but I think for me that's a huge priority because I do have a more experienced population, experience of life population. And I also, looking at affordability is different in Plum Point and Eltham than it is in Quinton. So I think the approach of having options is really, really good and thoughtful. But like I said, I really think there's pride in home ownership and appreciate the multitude of possibilities we have. And, I look forward to working with our team to figure out what's the best. And, a year from now, we can go back to Plan RVA and say, this is not what we wanted to do. This is what we did. So thank you.
All right. Ms. Steers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo what everyone has said up here about the Housing Advisory Committee. I think you guys have done a lot of work, and I appreciate all the hard work. I think this probably is directed more to Mr. Matt Starr. How much money have you requested from the county to do what you've done?
Zero so far.
Okay, good answer. All right, that was just my comment. I appreciate it. We have a lot of research to do on this subject, but I appreciate it.
I'd just like to echo all my fellow board members as well. And I do, I do want to mention what Matt is doing out there in the county, revitalizing these trailer parks into manufactured homes and something to make people affordable. I mean, I hadn't ridden by the one on Henpeck since you had it done, but I mean, it's really well done. And I mean, I know home ownership means a lot to people, and it actually gives them a sense of pride. I feel like moving in there. You've done a great job revitalizing those parks.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Mr. Starr. Sure. So I had jotted this down while you were speaking. So how do you enforce the standards that you have in the areas that the manufactured homes are in?
We it's a good question. I wanted to take, because I envisioned my ownership or management expanding, and so we went to originally joined the Virginia Manufactured and Modular Home Association, and then they provided templates for in-park rules and management, and then I have a property management company that manages them all for me. I will say, though, that for the parks that we have finished, for Henpeck, for example, we don't have any problems. I mean, at all. We don't get calls. I mean, those people are thankful to be there. I have one homeowner, first one as you come in, and she says we have a competition as to who can cut their grass the most during the month.
That's great.
They all work together. It becomes a community, and
that's great.
With very little policing required, and I think a lot of that comes from the home ownership pride.
Sure. It must be very rewarding for you as well.
They own it. So.
Right. And a follow-up question to that, and this might be a question for Mr. Hathaway as well. If you sold that area, what does the county have in place to ensure that those standards stay in place?
Good question. I guess for the parks that are existing, which are not, they're kind of grandfathered, so to speak, there's no mechanism there. But new parks, it could be a deed restriction,
Gotcha.
that requires that management stay in, either not the management, but the restrictions stay in place. And it would, for the new parks, it would be tied to the zoning, which would be enforced by the zoning administrator.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is the New Kent County 2026 legislative agenda. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. You have before you a revised 2026 legislative agenda. At our budget retreat, we reviewed the draft, and I've taken the comments received, and therefore you have the updated document before you. I also want to mention you have two documents. One is the full agenda, but then you also have the pocket version as well. And it's my intent that once the full agenda is adopted, the pocket version will be nicely done. It will be a glossy brochure that could be handed out to our state representatives and federal representatives as well. For the public, our legislative agenda is a document that we adopt each year with the purpose of letting our state and federal representatives know our positions on the upcoming the General Assembly session. And it also includes requests that we'd like for them to consider with their representation of us. And I will briefly go through the items. Item 1 is Agricultural and Forestry District Advisory Board membership. State code requires that it requires the setup of the Agriculture and Forestry District Advisory Board. Part of that requirement is that the Commissioner of Revenue serves on that board. We would like to provide some flexibility for not just New Kent, but all state localities to allow the Commissioner of Revenue to designate someone on their behalf to serve on that board as well, because we've found that a lot of times it's their deputy that's more hands-on with the AFD process, and it would probably be more appropriate for that person to serve on the advisory board. Item number 2 is funding for alternatives to groundwater. We all know that the state is, they're getting more strict on their groundwater withdrawal permits, and they're forcing localities to look at alternative sources of water, which we see as an unfunded mandate, because yes, they're forcing us to move to a surface water or alternative solution, but there's no money and no funding and assistance tied to that requirement. Item number 3, dam safety funding and regulations. We have a couple of dams in the county that are in need of upgrade and repair. If those dams were to have a major malfunction, actually both of those dams could do damage to Route 60 with the amount of water that could be released. We're asking the state for some financial assistance with the repair of those dams. The next item, expansion of authority to VDOT resident administrators. We've all had instances where we've gone to VDOT based on our knowledge of particular roads in particular areas, requesting either traffic lights or requesting reduction in speed limits. And there are strict standards that VDOT has to abide by before they can grant those requests. And there's been many times we've been unsuccessful in our requests when we know that there's an issue in that area just from our day-to-day knowledge. But unfortunately, the VDOT resident administrators' hands have been tied. It's unfortunate the way the VDOT process is, because a lot of their data is crashes and fatalities that they use. Our stance is we shouldn't have to wait for there to be a problem before we find a solution. If we know that it's an issue or going to be an issue, we should address it immediately. And the last item, the last request is additional allocation for secondary road maintenance funding. This is for localities that have major interstate projects going on through their community, as we've experienced. That has impacted our internal roads. When 64 is backed up, people get off and get on 60. They get on 249, which adds to the wear and tear. So therefore, we'd like to see some additional maintenance attention on those roads. Now, the last item is EPA regulations affecting fire and rescue apparatus. There are a lot of new EPA regulations coming down the pike and that have been implemented over the last several years for large trucks, large vehicles that impact our fire apparatus. We do ask for special consideration for our fire apparatus because they run and they operate different than the normal tractor trailer does. And what we're experiencing is because of the new regulations, they don't work well for our fire and rescue apparatus. The quality is not there. Vehicles aren't lasting as long as they had been under previous regulations. A lot of that is because our vehicles idle a lot. And not only do they idle a lot, they have to go fast speeds in very short time periods. And that should be treated differently as it goes towards the EPA standards. Not only that, it has impacted the production of fire and rescue vehicles, the availability of fire rescue abilities, which all of that boils down to cost of fire and rescue vehicles. We also have some position statements on potential items that may be considered during the upcoming session. First one is adequate and predictable state funding for K-12 education. The state has a process called benchmarking, and that's how they determine how much money localities receives. New Kent doesn't fare well in that formula, unfortunately, because of our median household income. But what's not weighted as much and what's not taken into account is the amount of growth that New Kent is experiencing. And with that growth comes needs for new infrastructure and new construction, as we are currently considering the construction of a new elementary school, which will have impacts on operating costs as well. The next item is support for housing development that respects local planning and authority. We're hearing a lot of rumblings that there could be legislation introduced in the upcoming session that would take away local authority and really mandate the production of certain types of housing. We just believe that should be a local decision. If history has not taught us anything else, it's taught us that it's usually not good when the state gets into local land use mandates. And a lot of that is because all of us, we've invested a significant amount of time working with our local residents, developing our comprehensive plan, our strategic plan, developing our plan for growth that's unique to New Kent County. So that should not be mandated by the state. Item number 3 is opposed legalization of skill games. This has been an issue for several years. If you've gone to a lot of the convenience stores, not just New Kent, it's a statewide issue. You'll see the skill games, the gambling games, tucked away in the corner. And sometimes they're not even tucked away. They're in the center of the store. Those skill games right now currently have very little regulation to that. And localities don't currently have the authority to determine whether or not they should be allowed in their community. We believe that skill games, I'm not saying we should ban them everywhere, but I do think it should be a local decision. Next item is funding for state-mandated positions, and this goes to our constitutional officers, and not just our constitutional officers, but other state positions such as the court officers. Every year we hear requests from court staff asking for the locality to supplement their salaries because the state is providing a salary below the market. So we are asking for the state to do a market study to consider, to ensure that salaries are where they need to be and consistent with the market. And the last item is collective bargaining. In 2022, there was legislation passed that gave localities the authority to do collective bargaining in their community. I think that legislation was fine. I think the localities should have that decision, but I don't think the state should mandate it. And our position is that should not be mandated. It should be a decision at the local level. That concludes my recommended 2026 legislative agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Any questions or comments about the agenda? I know we spent some time on it at our retreat.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed New Kent County 2026 legislative agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Any other discussion? If none, Ms. Watkins, poll the members, please.
Mr. Moyer,
Aye.
Ms. Pearson,
Aye.
Mr. Steers,
Aye.
Ms. Stewart,
Aye.
and Mr. Evelyn.
Aye. Motion passed. Next item is the new contract with EMS Management and Consultants for ambulance billing revenue recovery. Chief Opet.
Good morning, Mr.
Morning.
Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Hathaway. Today's topic is EMS recovery. As you know, in the past, we have contracted with a company in North Carolina called EMS MC, which is Emergency Medical Services and Management Consultants. They have been doing our revenue recovery for now 11 years. And they have been phenomenal to work with. We have a portal at our fingertips that allows us pretty much just in time of what we can see of what they're collecting. They're very conscientious about customer service to your constituents who call in and may have questions. They have been very, very good to work with. With that being said, our contract expires with them on December 31st of this year. And we were very fortunate that we were able to find a contract that we could piggyback off of through the city of Portsmouth. And it was actually, we're not going to lose anything. We're going to have all the same services, but the rate is going to be better. And that rate is going to go from 6.5% collection rate to down to 5 3/4%. So that's a win-win, and that also helps us. It goes down also because of our call volume goes up. So as our call volume goes up, that number does go down. So I would like to make a recommendation is to continue with this contract with these folks and continue to go down a positive road with these folks. So, and I do have Chief Baber here for any technical questions because she is our resident czar in EMS recovery.
I think just for the public out there, we recovered $712,000 in last year in the recovery. So, what do you use that typically that recovery money for?
Sure, the recovery money that goes back into the general account. So it just goes in, and obviously it's put towards our operational budget every year. So, and just so you all know, and the folks out there. 47, almost 50% of the collections come from the patient's insurance. So we're not really jabbing the patient whatsoever. Actually, the collections for actual patients is less than 1% of where they direct pay. So really what we're collecting is from the patient's insurance or liability of attorney or Medicare. So that's where the large percentage of what we collect come from.
Ms. Steers?
Yes, Mr. Opat. I think that's important for the citizens to know. Your policy is that if a bill is sent to a New Kent resident and they're unable to afford it, don't have the insurance or whatever, they don't get another segment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and I don't know that the citizens are aware of that, but I just wanted to bring that point to light. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other? None. I'll entertain a motion.
Let's see, Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the county administrator to sign the new contract for EMS/MC consultants at a new collection rate of 5.75% beginning January 1, 2026 and ending on June 30, 2028 for our EMS revenue recovery program.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Any other discussion? Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members, please?
Ms. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Thank y'all. Motion passed. Do we have anybody have any other business? All right. Our next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, December 8, 2025 in the boardroom of the County Administration Building. The board will also meet for a joint meeting with the Economic Development Authority at 8:30 a.m. on Thursday, December 18, 2025 at the New Kent Visitors and Commerce Center located at 7324 Vineyards Parkway. There will be no December work session. So thanks everybody for coming out this evening. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe out there, and look forward to seeing you December. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
Ms. Pearson?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Meeting adjourned.